Awesome. Perfect. Hello, everyone. I would like to call to order the Breckenridge Social Equity Advisory Commission meeting for May 21st.
Perfect, and I'll call a roll. Chair Jordan Burns. Vice Chair Tosh Greer. Here. Liaison Carol Sade. Here. Commissioner Isaura Cirillo, she's running late, but she's on her way. Commissioner Jotuan Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner June Walters.
Present.
Ujala Vatas. Commissioner Michelle Mahoney.
Present.
Commissioner Abigail Martinez.
Present.
Perfect.
Awesome. So just like to discuss and approve the agenda from last meeting. Motion to approve.
So moved.
I second.
Cool. And a discussion and approval of the minutes from last meeting. Motion to approve. Second, please.
Second.
Then on to Floor and Helen for the staff summary.
And just as a quick reminder, to make sure that we use our microphones, not only for the video, but also to help with our interpreter or our translator as well. Okay. First, I wanted to, I know it's not in the agenda, but I want to introduce May Watson. She's our new town clerk. She can say hi to her. Yeah, come say hi to her. She's our new member of the team. So she's taking over part of what Helen used to do as our town clerk. And Helen will now be our awesome director of municipal services and communications and a bunch of things. Anyway, she's boss lady, basically. The first the other update was the Rocky AI chatbot has launched and it's ready to be used. With the only thing we're working on right now is trying to get the text going, the text alerts, so people can still text to it, but we can't text out quite yet. But besides that, people can use it. It's on our website. You can just hover over Rocky, which is our new mascot, the little moose, and you can ask it questions in over 75 languages. So it's a great tool to use on our website for common questions. And then moving on, well, do you guys have questions, concerns, comments? No?
Have you had much use with it yet?
Yes, yeah, not a bilingual use. I think we're still pushing out the communications or the campaign to let people know about it, but we have seen the usage. It's answered a lot of rec center questions, actually. And talking about the rec center, so the rec center changed their financial assistant application process to make it a little simpler. The biggest things are that the application is just easier to fill out, or it's like more simple, and documentation is optional. The person just basically has to somehow prove that they need financial assistance, but the way to do it is a little bit more broad so that individuals don't feel like they have to produce information, especially in the climate that we're in. The rec center has made it very clear on there too that they're open for questions or just like to talk about it. However, it's easier on the person applying, basically. And they've expanded the things that it can be used for. So it can be used for memberships or adult programs, and then also the after school programs or summer camps. Okay. And that is all I have.
Cool. So on to presenters, and we have the awesome Melissa Andrews from the BTO, their public relations director, with an update on Breck Pride. And Majay, I don't know Majay's last name, but Majay is awesome too. And Majay Bigley.
Hello, Chair Burns and commissioners. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Melissa Andrews, and I'm the current PR director at the Breck Tourism Office. This is my colleague Majay Bailey. He's the events manager at the BTO, and we're here to give you an update about Breck Pride. You may notice that the name is different from last year. So we did acquire the trademark for Breck Pride from Breckenridge Ski Resort. It's a big win. Yeah.
Yes.
Goes a long way for the identity, being able to find it just through a Google search, things like that. So big win just to kind of kick off the event season with that. And this is our third year doing Pride in the summertime in June. It started as a community event, and we've had really great momentum since then. And we've begun to really build out what that identity means. So when you look at Breckenridge, what does it mean to be a welcoming destination, as well as still having unwavering support for our local LGBTQ plus community? And then what does Breckenridge mean to the people who come here? So
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, we'll get you right.
Did I miss that? That he's saying it.
wonderful. So the kind of pillars that we've built out the event around now are kind of focused on the attributes that we know are important to this community. So education within the community, allyship in the outdoors, and celebration of the LGBTQ plus community pride. This year we've been working with Mountain Pride as our advisors. And so they've been fantastic allies. If anyone knows Maddie, they're a fantastic person who has done training both for, last year's Pride event, but additional trainings with our BTO team and our Welcome Center staff, which goes a long way on that welcoming front when it comes to visitation. And then we've been marketing this year primarily within Summit County, but then using PR and tools like our website and search to reach a little bit farther across the state of Colorado. We think that Breck Pride offers a great alternative to folks in the Front Range who maybe don't want the big shebang of Denver Pride and might look for something like Breck Pride for family-oriented, free, that picnic party kind of style get together. So looking at the event lineup, we have really cultivated a fantastic week of experiences that showcases the tapestry of our community, celebrates the tapestry of LGBTQ plus pride, and is founded on those pillars of education, allyship, and celebration. I'm going to give you the quick rundown, but it's pretty long. We've got Pride Trivia, Rocky Horror Picture Show with Breck Film, a mountain bike ride with Gore Range Gravity Alliance, gay pop icon karaoke with drag queen Dr. Zachary and Jenny Ho, fireside chat, air stage après with Breck Create, Pride Fun Run, drag queen bingo, meta yoga, free yoga on the lawn, and then performances, including drag performances. And our headliner this year, his name is Jordy, and he's a great pop star. He's got such fun music, and he's pretty well known in the LGBTQ plus community. So we're really excited about that. And all the way through Sunday, there's actually Pride climbing as well at the rec center. So yeah, we've got it all. And that has actually support from about 25 businesses and organizations in town, including many that are town partners, Breck Create, Breck Rec Center, Breck Film. And so we're really just proud of how excited our whole community is to get involved. I mean, Majay received so much outreach from the business community of people who wanted to get in on this event. So we're really excited about it. And I know there was some interest in how we're representing the greater LGBTQ plus community. And so I just thought I'd bring out a few highlights. This year, we've invited a trans influencer to be a part of our fireside chat, as well as serve as an influencer for the event. And it's been a really successful partnership. So not only does he have the voice that he's established for himself as someone who's focused on highlighting inclusive destinations for the trans community, but He used to live in Denver. He currently lives in Austin. He's got friends in both of these places. He's bringing his whole family, the nieces, the nephews. He's bringing his friends out. So he, even in that organic sense, has a really great love for Breckenridge and this event already. Mountain Pride has been a really great partner for us just in terms of making sure we're understanding and appreciating the whole spectrum of the LGBTQ plus community. And then really throughout the week, that education and allyship is going to go such a long way for this community. But we're really proud of what we've got going this year, and it's going to be so much fun. Yeah. So I'll pause there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
What kind of presence would you like to see from the Social Equity Commission throughout the events?
Great question.
Mhm.
We'll certainly come and have fun.
Mhm.
And we also do have a volunteer sign up. Majay, I don't know if you want to speak to any of the volunteer roles.
Yeah, so basically, we have setup and striking for the event.
Mhm.
That'll be after the Pride Yoga, and then obviously after the event. And then Jay is going to be doing the Pride Proclamation during the event as well. And you can sign up online at gobrec.com.
And if you check out the Pride website already, because I looked at that recently, some really awesome pictures from last year's Pride. Yeah, I think there's some of
There are.
Taj and Taj's mom and just everyone celebrating and having a really good time.
We had a good time. with
That was so much fun. And then I want to comment on, I think I'm going to steal June's comment on this one. It's a great use of the equity lens and inviting in the community that you want to celebrate to help dictate how they want to be celebrated. And to kind of organize those things around and with the community that we want to show our love for. And I'm really excited with how this has grown and just how many more entities throughout town are becoming involved, and we just get to show off all the cool things because so many people don't know that we have a little movie theater in town, and it's such an awesome venue to be a part of and to have climbing being featured. And I know the first year, like, we wanted to do a bike ride and we wanted to do a run, and they're just
like people see it, but they haven't, some people haven't seen it used, so
Yeah.
even that.
And then like bingo this year, because I know we just done trivia the last few years, and the karaoke is going to be so cool. And I'm just excited for how this idea a few years ago has just blossomed into just this beautiful like garden of creativity and ideas and culture and family and love. Because last year was just so much love, even through like not the greatest weather at times. Like everyone still stayed around and was just happy to be with one another and just know that they were cared for by all the people around them.
Yeah. Ditto to all of that. And I also think ditto to you. You said you are proud of how far it's come, and I think you should be. You've done an amazing job. Both, yeah, everybody, all hands, an amazing job. So I'm super thankful, and I know we are, and I'm super, super excited to be there. And I'm going to sign up to volunteer.
Hello. I'd like to add that our engagement on social media has increased dramatically since last year, thanks
Really?
to carrier marketing.
Well-deserved shout out, absolutely. And so, yeah, just to, I think, reiterate, we're really excited to have Chair Burns read the Pride Proclamation. We absolutely invite the commission to join as volunteers as well as participants. And we definitely would continue to seek your support in just promoting the event. And so that is through organic means with your own friends and family and personal social media, as well as potentially if there's opportunity to communicate with the whole town of Breckenridge staff. I think that that could be a really meaningful way to disseminate into the greater community, but kind of have that showing of, this is still a community event and this is supported by the town. So it has been something we've wondered if whether it's the commissioner or from a general commission email, to kind of send a note to the whole town staff or however you communicate with the town. But something to consider, we've got a really great email that has the whole schedule. It's beautiful. It's got photos. We'd be happy to send that to you to forward along.
Love that
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
Thanks, Melissa. I think it's a fantastic idea.
From an internal perspective, that will actually, not that you guys can't do it, but will actually be our DEI committee. We already have it planned on the book, so we would love that if you want to send it out. We wanted to do, or we also are going to do a little quiz, so it'd be a great addition to that post.
Is this on? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Flor. So yes, we will send you that email for the DEI committee then to send through to the town. Thank you.
I'd have to go through college market. Figure out a different way.
It's for the new commissioners with this. This idea started with this commission that really started it. And we're so lucky to have great partners in the BPO that we're able to blow it out, be thoughtful about it, hearing of all the partnerships. That's incredible. So thanks to you, thanks to the commissioners that started it too.
It's grown.
You, are there like printout flyers for the event as well?
Absolutely. We have beautiful flyers being printed. We will be going around with canvassing as the BTO, but we will be sure to stop by the town and
Hey, come to CMC too, please. Yes. Yeah, I want to put those all over campus.
yeah, we'd love to use your hands and locations to help to get those flyers around as well. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm late. I had an emergency, so I couldn't come here earlier, sorry.
With this ESA.
Yeah, they were just giving us an update on Pride and letting us know all the events that they're going to do this year and inviting us to volunteer if we have time. I'm going to be reading the Pride Proclamation for this year. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll have some flyers and we'll get the email. So we'll all have the list of events for this year. It was cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
And tell the entire team we say thank you as well. We're very just thankful for everyone. Like perfect. And for our next presenter today, we have Lori Best from the town of Breckenridge, the director of the Housing Runway Project. Hello.
Yeah, hello, good evening. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I don't know everyone and probably most of you don't know me either. So I think it's great to be able to attend this meeting and, introduce myself, introduce the housing program, talk a little bit about the project that we're working on now and just, start to have communication with this commission because obviously workforce housing, affordable housing is so important to our locals, and we want to make sure that we are serving the folks that really need to be served. So thank you so much for having me. So just a quick introduction. I'll talk a little bit about the program, the background, talk a little bit about what we think going forward with our program. And then maybe we can get into some specifics about the current project that we're working on, get some feedback from you guys. So my name is Lori Best, and I have been managing the Town of Breck Housing Program since 2000. And when I started and I was hired, the director at that time said, I was hired as a planner because that's my background. And he gave me a list of tasks to work on, and like number 8 on the list was housing. So there was a lot of things in front of housing on this list, and he was like, "Yeah, we're starting to work on this affordable housing program. We want locals to stay in the community. And, so, we've got like 60 units right now that we need to monitor and take care of, and we need to add more units, obviously. And so, since then, 25 years ago, we have added a lot of units, and the program has expanded, and we've developed programs. And now, instead of it just being me, we have a staff of 5 people working in our housing department. We actually just became a department. We were a division up until the beginning of January. But, I think we all understand that living in a resort community puts certain challenges on the real estate market. And those markets, those challenges result in our locals being sort of displaced and forced to live further away, forced to accept unaffordable units, overcrowding, units that are in disrepair, all sorts of things that people have to deal with because most of the market is driven by people that do not earn their living here. And so the real estate prices are driven up. So, our goal is to try to, create units and create programs that enable at least sort of 47% of the jobs in town to be filled by people that live in town. I mean, that's a goal because, we're a resort. Some people are going to commute in. Some people actually prefer to live further out and commute in. So, but at least we have a goal that we want, 47% of our jobs to be filled by people that live here. It's super important that the people that live here or work here can live here and feel part of and connected to the community. So I think, we all realized that, the private sector wasn't going to do this. It would require public intervention in the market. And we've been really fortunate. The council is supportive of the program and funds the program. And we have a sales tax that's been approved to provide and create a sort of revenue stream, a actual dedicated housing fund. And then it's, figuring out kind of what are the policies and what are the programs going to serve our workforce. And it's not just about creating more inventory, because unlike a lot of other communities, we want to build neighborhoods. We want to build places where people can stay. They can move here and they can transition through their life and still stay here and not have to leave. So, that means you need different types of housing, you need different price points, you need rentals, you need for sale. At certain times in people's lives, they're willing to have roommates and then, that doesn't work anymore. And then you need, units that serve a family, and then you need to downsize because maybe you don't have the family anymore. So, it's a moving target, and it requires just a variety of different sort of strategies to sort of try to provide a diversity of price points and housing types. So we kind of created our first sort of really formal policies way back in 2000, although we had been doing deed restricted housings way back in the 80s. So, the town of Breckenridge was very proactive early, which sets us apart from lots of other resort communities. So we had that going for us. And, since I've been here, I think I mentioned we're, started with about 50 or 60 units. We're up to about 1,700 deed restricted units now. And like I said, it is a variety. It's everything from, deed restricted studios that are owned by investors that rent them, to big apartment complexes, to for sale neighborhoods, to dispersed units that are for sale. So, we've done a lot in the last 25 years, but, it's not a problem that is easily solved. There are many people that currently have benefited and they have thrived because of the program. But there are still many people that are just arriving or have not been able to take advantage of, any of the programs or the projects that are out there. So, just getting inventory out there isn't the only solution. We can't just say, oh, we're done. Good. We have to continue to sort of innovate and think about our programs and how do we address the current needs and make sure people are not cost burdened, they're not overcrowded, they're not living in substandard conditions, and they're living near their jobs and they're part of our community, because we wouldn't be a real town if we didn't have people that actually lived here. And we'd be sort of a different kind of entity, a resort or something like that. And a lot of communities are okay being that. They're perfectly fine saying, we're going to just focus on sort of the tourism and the visitors and the retirees. And, we're okay if our workforce lives far out and commutes in. There are certainly communities that have said that's what we want to be. But Breckenridge does not want to be that. We feel we need a critical mass of people that live here because that is kind of the heart and soul of our community. So we're super committed to trying to figure out how we roll out programs and projects that really target our need and advance the opportunities for people. I think, it's not just, building new inventory, but it's also helping people sort of navigate the process and get the information they need. Because it's so complicated. When I talk to people in the coffee shop, they're like, where do I even start? So we recognize that outreach and communication is a big piece of this. It's not just, building new projects, but so I think, we are committed to working with our communication team, particularly in the second half of this year, to figure out how we best outreach and get information to people, because information is knowledge, and that'll help people find their way into these programs. Because our goal, I think, like I said earlier, there's so many people that have done well here. But those were the people that have been here for a while. So, how do we continue to provide programs for new people, or for people that just haven't been able to get into the system? Because we know, stable housing is huge in terms of your mental health, your ability to stay here, do your job, have a quality of life. So housing stability is sort of super important, and that's what we're trying to bring to to our local workforce. So Runway's been a project that we're working on now. I don't know if people have heard about Runway or read about it or seen articles in the paper, but there was a recent article fairly recently that sort of it was a little bit critical of the Runway project, and maybe a little critical of the housing program in general, in terms of maybe do the programs provide people that already have advantages with more advantages at the cost of not helping the people who are maybe the most needy. So I did, and they had mentioned several things in that article. I don't know if people saw that, but instead of me doing a presentation, I hope maybe we can have just a little communication and conversation about it. So I'm going to really love your feedback as I talk about some of these things. So, one of the things that was brought up in that article is, the concept of ADUs. I don't know. And let me tell you about Runway first. Runway is a fairly large project, 148 homes. It's going to be multifamily townhomes. It's going to be single family homes. It's going to be duplexes. We think we've talked the council into really targeting some low house affordability, really getting some people in there that haven't been able to buy up to now, because we're going to have prices like in the 350s, which is really good for a 2 or 3 bedroom townhome in this community. So been a focus of ours is to really try to improve the affordability of this project, because other neighborhoods have just, the price has crept up over time. So so Runway is 148 units. We're trying to launch the first phase, which is 81 units, trying to break ground this summer. And I just got out of a meeting talking about it, so still teetering, but we certainly hope to get it launched. It's not easy to build housing. It's expensive. And these are sort of risky times in terms of our market. So we understand we need to be, very careful about launching such a big project. So, but we're still hopeful. I think we're going to break ground this spring on the first phase at least, and that would be 81 units. What's really cool about this neighborhood is the diversity of household types and sizes. Really, 2-bedroom, townhomes all the way up to, 4-bedroom single family homes with ADUs. So quite diverse. I think the mixed income neighborhoods are the healthier neighborhoods. So Still hoping to get it launched, but some of the things that came up recently that the council will still have to weigh in on before, as the project moves along, is the deed restriction. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with what deed restrictions are, but it's how we control who can live in units and how much the units can sell for and those sorts of things. But we're still working on the deed restriction, and we'll be working with the town council on the deed restriction for the next couple months or so. Some of the elements of that deed restriction that I think were mentioned in that letter to the editor had to do with ADUs, had to do with owning other property, had to do with sort of the lottery process in general. So I thought maybe we could talk through some of those things. And if you guys have any thoughts, love to hear your thoughts. Actually would love to maybe attend your committee meetings more often and just sort of make sure that we are communicating adequately. And but in regards to sort of let's talk about ADUs. So ADUs are sort of accessory little apartments that come with a single family home or can be put on a single family home. You know, our council is really, really interested in maximizing the number of ADUs in Runway because they can be a relatively affordable rental unit. And, you know, if we're building a neighborhood of 148 units and we could get 44 additional little rental units, we view that as a win for us. Creates an affordable rental unit. But, you know, those ADUs don't come without a cost. So, you know, we've been considering, well, if the town sort of pays for the shell of the ADU, should the buyer be required to finish the ADU and then be required to rent it? And I think there's some concern in the letter about, you know, building ADUs sort of helps that higher price point family because they can afford the $800,000 single family home where an ADU can go. But I think ADUs also help our lower income households because they do add that additional rental. So I think there is we're helping the lower income households with the ADU. We're providing the higher income households with a rental that they can rent and can make some revenue on. But in our mind, the benefit is that we're going to have those rental units available for lower income households. So,
Can I ask a question about the ADU?
sure, yeah.
Is it the owner of the property that manages in
Yeah, and
the town?
not the town. We don't really want to be managing ADUs, but you know,
Kind of like the Wild West seems like, man.
OS. But you know, a lot of people want ADUs because they see it as a way to help them cover their mortgage. You might have somebody that can barely get into that single family home. Having ADU revenue would help them get into the mortgage. So from our position, as long as we sort of cap the rent that they can charge, so you know, we don't, you know, sort of enable them to charge an astronomical rent, that wouldn't sort of help the situation. So where we're coming from is, you know, if we can cap the rent, then it's a benefit to potential households that could afford that rent. It's a help to the homeowners because they could have additional rental revenue. And I think the one thing we're trying to work out, and you know, we know not everybody is going to be a good landlord. So really,
next question.
you know, the decision that council's kind of looking at is, you know, should we require the construction of the ADU up front? And I don't know that they've decided. I think from staff's perspective, we would rather people be able to voluntarily opt to have an ADU. Just because not everybody's a good landlord. And that way you get people who really want to have an apartment at their house, instead of sort of building them up front and requiring all buyers have an apartment in their house. So I think that's one of the things we're trying to sort of vet with council over the next couple months in terms of ADUs. We think ADUs serve all segments of our workforce because they provide a variety of price points and they help the buyers. So and that's our general thought on ADUs. If there's questions, I'd love to
Sorry, I just had a quick question. I know, so the runway project, are those all deed restricted? Because I think one of the things the article brought up was if these are, um, for sale houses, right? They're earning income
Mhm.
and they're then increasing the size of their house, effectively then increasing the value of their house. And then, so how does that help us, like somebody that's trying to buy into a market that, again, the prices are just increasing because now they have 400 additional square feet added to a house that's already out of most people's range?
Well, if we build the ADUs and if we were to require the ADU be completed at the time for all of the single families that can accommodate an ADU, that would drive the sale price up for those single family homes. Now, so it's driving the sale price up for homes that are already
High.
fairly high.
Yeah.
So definitely that's a concern, is by requiring the ADUs, we make the initial price points of those units less attainable. And that's a big concern. I mean, from our perspective, we would rather create the opportunity for an ADU, and every single one of these homes, they're going to be pre-wired, they're going to be ADU ready. Because, the most important thing about ADUs is I think they're fantastic in neighborhoods. But unless you've planned that you're going to have a lot of ADUs, then they can be a disaster because there's not enough parking. So it's super important up front to say, okay, we're going to plan this project to accommodate ADUs. And if the owners opt to build one, that's fine. But then you're right. So they're going to be investing, I don't know, $150,000.
So then you have.
Then they
units to
pass
actually
that on
sell.
when they go to resell it. So the price of the unit does go up.
But it gives you some ownership of, it's
Abs-
not being built for you. You have the.
You have to-
bones, But you have to put effort into it as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly. I mean, that's sort of the concept, I think, initially in Wellington is, that developer provided housing, but provided opportunities for capital improvements. If the owners could come in, they could build a garage. So it was kind of that model. So, I mean, I think we're very supportive of ADUs. I think they check a lot of boxes. We just need to be careful that we're not driving the prices, the initial sale price up so high that they're.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. It has to come back to me.
Yeah. I think with the possibility to add them later on would be kind of like the most beneficial, like Ujello's saying.
Provides some ownership of it, right? So it's like you're not required to do something. You have the structure to do it, but then you have to put some effort into it as well. So you're not just reaping the benefits of
Something we
give you,
Yeah.
right? So I think sort of makes the ownership a little bit more of an equitable approach in my mind, but.
If that's like your goal, and it may not be like obtainable like when you first buy the property, it's something that you could work towards over the upcoming years as well. Like, I know I'm really excited by this project. I've been like applying in every single one of the lotteries recently to try and find a house.
Yay.
So really, I'd love to stay in Breck as long as possible. So this project's really awesome. And then just that combination of diversity throughout the entire project on Floridora is really cool. Also, that's the name of the road that it's going to be on.
Yeah.
I learned how to say it. So I'm really excited, and also with the deed restriction is being for all of the units.
Units will be deed restricted. Some of the units will have potentially, like I said, we're still working out the final details. Most of the deed restrictions have an appreciation cap, which is fairly common, just to, the whole goal of our program isn't to let people buy and then sell at whatever price. That's not why we're subsidizing these homes. It's to pay it forward. When you go to sell, your appreciation is going to be capped. I mean, these are a nest, not a nest egg necessarily, they're not intended to be an investment property. But, we do believe that 3% appreciation over time is actually a really good, decent rate of return, and provides the opportunity for people that get into a home ownership unit to be able to stay and feel like they you know, they have stability and they can maybe hopefully, you know, at that point start to think about the future and staying here for a while. And they're making a little bit of money on their real estate. They're not making market rate because they just wouldn't stay affordable if they were market rate. But yeah, I like your comments about the opportunity to add one is kind of a nice way to go. The diversity in the
question too
neighborhood.
with that.
Sure.
So we looked at building
Uh-huh.
a garage with an ADU. I live in the Wellington neighborhood. It costs about 250 to 300,000 to build.
Yeah.
But the town will only give you about 25 to $50,000 back.
Right.
So is that the same style that they want to do for the runway project? Because if that's the case, then you're not really getting all of that money back if you're to build that
Yeah.
afterwards.
And
Do you
don't
restrict
get
it?
You put a floor, you don't get it. You put, so it's a bunch of.
10% of the original sale price is what you get for your capital improvements.
And if we're talking about $800,000 houses, is what it is. Realistically.
Homes, yeah.
Well, sorry, I'm too far. My point of view, that is, I'm Mexican. I come from a very, I started working as a dishwasher housekeeping when I got the first time I came to United States. So you put those prices realistically, I really don't see that affordable at all. If you're thinking about how much money the people there is like workforce here in the county, you're talking about people who's making how much? $25 an hour, maybe? That's insane. And you're talking to that people and telling them, oh yeah, you want a house? Sure, we have our, warehouse force and it's $800,000.
Right.
You just need to put what? 200,000 down?
Yeah, 20%.
For a down
Yeah, it's
payment?
not 3%, it's like 7 to 8% for an interest rate now. So you're talking like $5,000-6,000 for a mortgage.
So it sounds awesome. Realistically, who really can afford that? That's what we need to think about it, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking about the people who's really working and living in the town. Who is gonna afford that?
Mhm.
I work. And I don't think I can afford that either, And it is, I mean, really, who can afford those houses?
You know, what's interesting is like, our workforce is very diverse. We certainly have a lot of folks that are, as we talk about AMI, maybe 60, 80, 90, 100% AMI, but then we have a lot of people that are 120, 140% AMI that still can't buy
Why
a
do they do
market
it,
rate
right?
unit.
Define AMI. I don't think everyone knows.
Oh,
what AMI
area median income. It's a number that is supposedly reflects our local incomes. It just tripled. It's saying local incomes are going up, and that's probably because, as they're measuring it, they're capturing more remote workers who are not making their livings based on wages being paid here. So, yeah.
The people that I'm thinking is teachers, servers,
Mhm.
I don't know, people that work in restaurants, people that work in hotels,
Yeah.
even the bus drivers, how much the bus driver make, right? I don't think those people make that much money. And it's the people that needs the housing, unfortunately.
Well, yeah.
Homes come in though.
Yeah,
a
townhomes,
two-bedroom townhome for
duplexes.
351
Is this
is.
on? Oh yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
So I had two questions actually. So one of my questions was, what's the lowest priced house home to the highest? Like how big is that range?
350 is the lowest,
Okay.
and
And that's for a 2-bedroom.
2-bedroom townhome.
Okay.
But we have 3-bedroom townhomes that are also right around 4. So we've got 2 and 3-bedroom townhomes. We've got duplexes that are, let me see if I brought my numbers. Our duplexes are 575 for a 3-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have a diversity of price points to address your issue.
Well, it's not my issue.
Yeah,
It's the
your
town
concern. Yeah.
people's Issue.
Yeah.
And I do have that issue too.
Yeah. I-
One more question, sorry. The next question that I had was, when the home, so, you're building, I forget how many you said.
Yeah, 140.
148, great.
Yeah.
Um,
Ideally.
yeah, so a pattern that I've noticed in the neighborhoods, especially we'll use Wellington for, a good example, is that, okay, 148 units are there, they all get bought. So there's 148 families living in those units. And when they sell, they're sold super quick to their friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at no point in time is anyone able to breach that neighborhood that is not who they want, essentially. And I think that's a huge discrepancy within the deed restricted housing. I don't know necessarily how to solve it, whether it be a lottery or something like that. I know it's a hard to control, private buy, things like that. But I do notice that. And I do think that moving forward with new developments, that should be something on the radar because essentially you're disenfranchising a lot of the community if you don't know someone who knows someone who knows someone. And that stinks. And it also closes off all of the diversity, just depending on who pioneers the neighborhood, I should say.
Yeah, I think
said
absolutely our
on that.
projects are lotteries. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that we have looked at. So any new unit we bring online, it does go to a lottery because that's
Amazing.
an incredible point and it is very valid. And that's something we looked at improving. And then just to jump into, just bring this conversation back a little bit. I think it's so great that Lori's here. We know as she started with, like, housing is the foundation to being able to thrive in a community. It's a basic need, and
How do we do
there's
better?
we can
Yeah.
have 20 meetings about this, and we'll keep having these meetings because
Yeah.
I think it is something critical that impacts our community's lives. So we thought in this conversation, Lori did a great job giving that quick overview about all those programs. Then we want you to ask any
Yeah.
questions you have. If you
Yeah.
don't agree with something or have heard in the community, want to hear those concerns. And also, as Lori brings up, the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, other questions specific to the runway project, we haven't decided those at the council level. So we, as a town, we're not just presenting this as what is happening. We want to hear from commissioners to be like, have you considered this? I don't agree with that. So really use this opportunity for all the questions. Don't hesitate if you don't agree with something.
Is that okay? Okay, you go.
Before I forget it,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Go.
I think one of the things that concerns me is now the property's fine, right? In 15, 20 years, similar to what Issa brought up, is I think there needs to be some sort of, not just for ADUs, but for support from the town to be able to add to your property, right? Within itself, like a 20-year-old dishwasher, upgrading your floor, adding things to the outside, where anybody else with with a market rate house is using that to their benefit. And then somebody that has a deed restricted has an additional challenge because they're putting money into their house without having any return from it. That's something I think
that comment. I think we have learned a lot from, I mean, one of the good things about Breck is we started a long time ago. That's also one of the bad things about Breck is because we've learned so many lessons along the way. Obviously, maintenance and long-term upkeep when your resale price is capped, what's the incentive? What's the motive? So we have launched a sort of in addition to capital improvements, we've launched a maintenance provision where you can recoup the cost of replacing your appliances, replacing your roof, your flooring, but you can't necessarily recoup what you originally paid because if you wait 10 years to sell, then the next person's going to have to rebuild them again or redo them again. So we have a process for depreciating them over time, but definitely we want to figure out ways to make sure we're incentivizing people to maintain it. Because the worst thing would be if your neighborhoods are just, you can sell anything because it's at a great price, but it's in terrible condition. I mean, we got to avoid that.
Did you have another one?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing that I thought of, and this is just from my perspective as like a single woman that lives in the county, I have a dog and it's just me and her, and I have one, a single family, single person income. And just hearing the prices, I already know that I would be out of the bracket to afford. So when I think about, affordable housing, I not only think of different job diversities, but I also think of different diversities in general of living styles. So I'm a single woman. It's not as, the world technically is really not set up for one person. It's really set up for a couple. And so for me, when I think of 350, I immediately am like, okay, so this seems like something that I would need to have another person to afford this. So I wonder if there could be maybe more diversity within the pricing, the eligibility, things like that. And if not, then maybe more opportunity for persons like me to gain access to funds. And, just saying. And then I also had a question about the ADUs. So with that, is there a minimum or maximum requirement of size? Is there a minimum or maximum requirement for parking spots? Things like that.
Definitely with the ADUs, we're including a parking spot for the ADU in case people do decide to build it out, that it won't put pressure on the parking, which is already tight. And we've sized the ADUs in terms of us sort of pre-designing these units so they can accommodate an ADU. And it just is right above the 2-car garage. So it's a really good size ADU. Yeah, I think the ADUs will be very functional and usable and affordable. It is interesting, one thing that is driving these price points is that we are building sort of a neighborhood that includes single-family homes and duplexes, and we could stack condos and maybe hit some lower initial price points.
Yeah.
And I think that's a conversation to have with council when we have a specific site that seems good for that particular density. So it's always an issue of density, to try to get the lower sale prices.
Yeah.
But we'll continue to try to, we push council pretty hard on the amount they're going to have to subsidize to even just get them down to where we're at now.
Yeah.
The other thing that helps us hit the price points that we're at now is those single family homes. Because, the high priced units at Stables Village, we had lists and lists of households that wanted into those, because we do have a lot of households that can afford more. But there's currently no inventory. There's no, they can't afford a $5 or $4 million house, but they can afford an $800,000 house. We have a long wait list, and that's people that have been in the community for a while. Maybe they've been living in a condo or a townhome, and they have, both have good jobs, or one person has a great job, or whatever the configuration of their family is. They're able to pay more, and they don't want to leave the community. Because now they've been here 5, 10 years, and maybe they have kids, they have a family. They just need a more appropriately sized unit, and they can afford those price points. So we need to sort of take advantage of that demographic and use that to help us buy down the prices of our entry level for sale products. So.
Yeah.
One other thing I would love your opinion on, because it's an issue in the deed restriction, is right now the deed restriction that we're contemplating does not allow folks who are buying the lowest priced units to have another unit in Summit County. So if you have another unit in Summit County and you want to buy one of the lower price point units, you have to sell that other unit that you have. The thought around that is that, we don't have very many of these lower priced units. We don't have near enough. And
So if they have one restricted and a lower price, they cannot buy another one that is a lower price, is what you're saying?
You can't own at the same time. So if you have a unit if you own a property and you want to buy a lower priced unit in this neighborhood, you have to sell this. You can't own both at the same time. If they're both deed restricted?
we haven't gone, like I said, we haven't drafted the deed restricted or the deed restriction yet. But our concept was that these lowest price points unit should go to the people who really haven't had the opportunity to have a home that they own at all. So if you somehow did acquire a unit somewhere else in Summit County, and maybe you've been occupying it, and then maybe if you can get into Runway, that would be great. Do we allow them to keep that other unit if they deed restrict it? Maybe that's one thing that's on the table. But we just don't think you should be able to own another market rate unit and buy into a heavily subsidized deed restricted neighborhood.
Right.
And So, but we do allow people to, if they're buying one of the higher priced units, we haven't restricted them from owning other property. So
What-
maybe
why
there's a
is
little
that?
inconsistency. Well, because
So I understand, but I
Yeah.
just, the only thing that I see is like, from a perspective of like, either way, it's a deed restricted unit, so you're taking up subsidized housing, period. Because if you own a market rate house, you can just buy a deed restricted unit and then just rent out that bigger house and just save money on the back end and also make money on the front end.
Right.
Regardless. So it makes more sense to me that if someone was buying a higher priced unit, they would already have the money to do that. But also it could be done on the lower price too. So I think it should just,
Well, it's also not just because I know people and they own I mean, I don't know what the people that I know, what if you have like the case that they're planning, right, to buy the $800,000 house that rent something out.
Mhm.
Some people is living there and to help themselves, they're also bought something else. Either rented that.
right.
So, I mean, it's the same families,
Yeah.
wants to help. So I don't.
I think that's a little difficult because like as was said, if you already own another home, regardless of value, if you could afford an 800,000 or $1 million home with an ADU, and you can still live in the property that you've spent 10 years paying off already, and now you have a secondary property with a rental property, so that's potentially
You're renting out in
well,
Denver.
so even if you don't move, you've now got 5 extra bedrooms here in Summit County that you can rent alongside a house that you're currently living in. Even though the cost of that is more controlled, I guess I just don't see the fairness. Like if this is going to be an opportunity for someone to have their first home and their ability to have that house be an $800,000 or more house with a rental unit, I think that the benefit of that should go to the person who's buying their first home and have the opportunity to have tenants if they like, not someone who's potentially buying their second home at a subsidized cost that we're all paying for that ability for them to make more money.
I was talking about that second home that is not restricted. Because I think you're not allowed to do that either.
Right.
It's for what I understand.
Well, right now, for example, in Stables Village, which has some high price single family homes as well, the buyers of those homes are allowed to keep another property that they might already own in Summit County. Only one, but no, it could be market. They're not required to sell their market rate unit in order to buy into a higher priced deed restricted unit.
You think about it, they rent it to somebody local also, he cannot afford to buy a house. It's also a benefit for the person who's renting the place, right?
So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing someone who's buying a home in the Stables, keeping their second home that's market rate, either renting it out on a short-term basis or a long-term basis for revenue and living in the subsidized house. That's what I see.
Yeah, it is interesting because the higher priced single family homes in all of our neighborhoods are not the units that are being subsidized. In fact, those are helping subsidize the lower priced units.
And what I think what you go to is what a lot of other mountain towns are doing is in order for you to actually have a second home here, you have to live there, right? Like Crested Butte is doing that. I would much rather have somebody local own a house and have a second dwelling here and be able to rent it out than rather having somebody from Denver come up, buy a place, and then pull you out of that ability to do that, right? And they're using that as a income. It's not bringing it back to our community as much as I think
Right.
that conversation happens.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it is an investment property for them. They're
Mhm.
not invested in our community. They're invested in that property that is in our community.
Right.
Right.
And the same thing can happen with someone who owns a house in Denver. They could rent their house out in Denver and move up here full time and so it's the same thing.
Home in Denver.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure everybody who hasn't been able to speak gets to speak.
Yeah.
And maybe if you have more comments, maybe email Lori or
Because, yeah, we're just starting this conversation with you all.
down the horn and let each commissioner
So I do
say
want
what
to
they
put
think.
some things
and
on
they have a
record.
question. So let's just go around the horn on
Yeah.
this.
Gail, would you like to start?
Yeah. Just got some considerations.
Primeramente, gracias por venir.
First of all, thank you for coming.
Understood that, right?
Sí. Quería opinar de que realmente con todo lo que hemos hablado, no lo puedo ver como un proyecto accesible a la comunidad.
I want to say that with everything that we have talked about, I really don't see it as a affordable project to the community.
Si ustedes lo planean para un proyecto accesible para la comunidad, me gustaría que pudieran ver respecto a los precios.
If you are aiming towards an affordable housing, I would like for you guys to take a look at the prices.
Y algo que puede ayudar a la comunidad
And something that could help the community
para poder comprar esas unidades
to be able to buy those units
sería solo la unidad
would be only the unit.
y después la persona que llegue a comprar la unidad
And then after the person that would be able to purchase the unit
ellos pueden construir el otro.
could then build the DUI.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ujala
Yeah, thank you.
and Jotuan.
A couple of considerations, mainly in mainly in the area of the ADUs. And I'm trying to use this to make an argument, I guess, for some of the most vulnerable in our community. And I do worry that if ADUs are only available for rentals and not a part of a broader strategy to help residents to build equity or transition to owning one day, I'm concerned we might be reinforcing a permanent renter class here in Summit County. And so I'd just like to ask, using our equity lens, are there pathways for renters to become owners so that they can build, you know what I mean, towards upward mobility? I'd like for that to be considered as a part of those broader conversations. And then the second part deals with, I feel like with the lack of supportive services for ADU residents, they might be in a position where they remain economically stagnant. And so can we consider wraparound services that can support renters, that will help them to build their credit, build their savings, and start to plan for them to one day transition from renting to owning? Thank you. I had to write it down.
I'm gonna hear that.
Isara.
I just want to apologize. I'm sorry I come across too strong, but I get excited and I get like passionate about it and I want to express my voice and I get like, yeah. So, but I'm good.
It's good.
I'm good.
Sorry, I've never introduced myself. My name's Jay. It's really nice to meet you. And I just had I guess a continued question on the potential second home ownership. So if it was going to be someone's second home and they were going to rent that property out, the runway property, as with the ADUs, would there be a cap on the rental?
There's always a cap on the rental in any deed restriction neighborhood that we're doing now. But the runway does need to be their primary residence. They can't buy the runway for the purpose of renting and that. It needs to be owner occupied.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Tosh?
Thanks. Hi, I'm Tosh.
Hi.
Yeah, for me, I really just think about it from my point of view, because that's really all I can speak to. And I just think about, I am automatically excluded from this whole project. So like, to me, I'm like, who even cares about the runway project? Or like, like, I'm not saying that like actually, but I'm saying in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't have $350, you know? So I think that there just needs to be more of a diversity in price. And I do understand that with the multifamily neighborhood, you're bringing in different persons. So single family people single persons, just couples. So I understand that, ADUs might not be good for a single family, but it might be good for, a single person. I get that. But I don't know if what Joe Twan said is like, do the single people just want to be renters for the rest of their lives? And I think that's what's going to drive the permanent residency and the next like generation of people. Because I know like me, a millennial, I know a lot of my friends are moving out because they just can't afford it, but they want to start a family. They want to, be a member of the community. They want to be in the town. And so I think it's really crucial to think about those price points, and think about the opportunity within those price points. So like a single family home for a lower price, instead of just a condo, things like that.
Okay, so a couple things. I think at one point they started using the word attainable versus affordable. And I think the two has a big difference on how the communication goes out for the neighborhood, because affordable in some people's mind is, it's different for everybody, right? So attainable seems a little bit nicer maybe than affordable. Typically, from everywhere that I've lived, apartments and condos are cheaper than houses. So I don't see, when you're looking at a 2-bedroom home versus like a 4-bedroom single family home, the price should be different because it's a different square footage. You're going for different styles of everything in it. I don't think $350 for a 2-bedroom for where we live is astronomically insane. I don't think it's equitable though to have the second home ownership different between lower prices homes and higher price homes. I think that's the equitability line for me, is that it's got to be the same for everybody. And I know condo, like you would love to be like in a house versus a condo, but I do think like we have very few condos to buy here. And excuse me if I get the name wrong, Vista Verde, is that what it is now?
The apartment.
All renting, correct? And they're open because I think they're renting. People want to buy, whether it's a condo or a townhome. Like I'm in a duplex, and even that is, for me, it's great. But people don't want to like rent a condo. They want to buy a space to have their own, to get the equity for that. So I think it's coming up with a vast array of housing availability for everybody, which I know is not easy.
I share your your objectives to have a vast array of housing. It's very difficult, in this community, there's just not that many sites.
Sure.
There's no land, no property. And, we don't want to go out into the backcountry. We don't want to go too high. That's one of the balances about being in a small town. So, how do we address multiple competing priorities?
Yeah,
for sure.
If you had a condo, right, or an apartment at a lower price that someone could get in and get some equity and then they move, there's still then,
If we could have,
you're doing the things you want to do, but you're then making it more affordable for some people who can't afford a $350,000 house.
Yeah.
Like, so for instance, like I own my condo, and it would be nice that if like, maybe if I wanted to, if I had a family, wanted to move into a single family home, if I sold to someone that may be in need within the community, maybe I get some type of subsidized on the new purchase, something like that. So that we can keep within our community, but also so you're incentivizing me to move up, but also those people to get in.
That idea too of the program to like rent to
Own.
own. Yeah. So that they're not renters forever.
Well, you guys will be very happy with the next project we're thinking about. I haven't even talked to town council about it yet.
She's like, it's just my idea.
Thank you all with it. I mean, first, Lori, thank you
Yes,
for
thanks.
coming and being part of
It's really helpful.
This is exactly what
Yeah.
we want. Like you, Sarah, I love that you're passionate, that you're pushing back on things. Like everyone, that's
It's just
exactly what we want to
different
hear.
perspectives, right? And like that's what I specified at the beginning. My point of view is not gonna be the same hertz, right? For me, it's way totally different, and I feel that I fit in that immigrant Mexican community that lives here. They can't afford any of that, so that's why it's And that's why you say the affordable thing is like, you tell me affordable, it's gonna my affordable
but
is
to
gonna
you
be
it's
different
not.
than yours.
Mhm.
affordable is relative for sure.
One thing I wanted to comment about, because being those houses, even if they're expensive, and it's being for families as well, we need to consider also when you had a family, you had kids, and most of the people that had families and lived here, they had no families here, right? No extended families. So everything goes together with the daycares and all those expenses that when their kids are very, very young. And I know the town has done a wonderful job with all the help with the daycare and all that. But it's something that I think, especially with families, is insane, like how much we pay, because we also knows that we pay in our kids in daycare, and you add that when you buy that house that is affordable, and you barely kind of making the income to pay the mortgage, you add to that you need to pay like $4,000 a month for 2 kids at the daycare. That's insane. That's what I was saying. Like, yeah, I like the market is different. They're trying to focus on families, right? Which is, I think there is, and more of the people who families, a lot of people leave the county because they don't have family close, the daycare is crazy expensive, and it's like then you're talking that the family home becomes a single person because it's cheaper for one person to stay home than go to work and pay the daycare. So it's some things that they need to be considered. That I'm not sure it does being considered on all that.
I think that's why we don't really like relying on the federal government's definition of income because, you know, up here, maybe 30% of your income is reasonable for your housing expense, but maybe not since childcare costs so much, food costs so much, insurance costs so much, HOAs are so expensive relatively.
You don't live in a traditional place.
No, we don't live in a conventional community, and you know, we're just always you know, our council is super supportive, and we're trying to be innovative and come up with solutions to address as much as we can. But there's no silver bullet, and no one project's going to serve everybody. So you know, we always think, okay, well, that project's going to, you know, clearly the apartments are serving a certain segment. Then we've got just a variety and diversity of neighborhoods that all serve a different segment of our community. So it is really important to know that one specific project isn't going to take care of everybody. This one is intended to have a broad, you know, broadly sort of address some of our needs, but it's certainly not going to get everybody. And we're going to continue to look at, you know, different sites can do different kinds of projects.
And with that, so council will make some of these decisions specifically on the runway project. Will we talk about ADUs?
Oh, yeah.
In the next meeting? Okay.
We're still trying to figure out.
So, yeah, I mean, I love, all of you had, let me finish. All of you had such great input. So maybe I'll talk with Floor and Lori and see if there's something, some sort of memo we can provide to give you a little more information.
Yeah.
To give more input to council as we make this decision, because timing wise, I don't know that we'll have another full meeting, but any questions you have with the runway, what we talked about today, please ask me. I want to hear all your feedback, good, bad, questions, all of that. We want as much input as we can get. And I'm sure with Lori, this will be the first of more housing conversations because this was a great conversation. So
Thank you for
all.
including us on this one, Lori.
Lori.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. And, you know, maybe we come to you all earlier as we're in this sort of thinking about a project on a piece of land, just to sort of vet it a little bit here and get your thoughts. So
We'd love to be a part of that ideation.
I think that's a great idea, an earlier approach to the commissions. But as a long-term resident here, I didn't want you to leave without getting some compliments in you know, 40 years of the same issues: housing, childcare, education, transportation. I think you've done a fabulous job.
we have had a lot of support from the council and from the community. I mean, the community, you know, approved several voter measures to include a
Right.
tax. So that
Right.
we have a funding stream. So the community's always been
Right.
super supportive, understands the issues.
Mhm.
It's just about sort of how do we execute solutions. So,
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, it's tough and not easy if, yeah. Everybody be doing it, but.
But you're the best.
Thank you. Yes, we do the best, yes. No, your feedback's been really interesting and helpful and gives me lots to think about. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking on such a complicated project and.
I hope we get it across the start line.
Yes.
Get it across the start line.
And
All right,
we'll
thank you all.
always be here for.
Wanted to put it on the screen for people.
And these are, in case anyone is not familiar what a proclamation is. So a proclamation is just a very ceremonial statement by the town. So it's something that the town does here and there to just acknowledge a moment, a celebration month. So I'll kick it over to Jay, but we have a Immigrant Heritage Month proclamation and a Pride Month proclamation.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah,
about
if
that.
anyone, it was in our packets. This is first the Immigrant Heritage Month proclamation. So if anyone read it and had any feedback on the language or any thoughts with it, we'd love to hear it.
So when, do we know when they'll be finalized?
Yeah, we are planning to read it at the next meeting.
Okay, so yes.
27th in the evening meeting, so shortly after 7.
Yeah. So if anyone is interested in coming to that meeting, similar to our social equity meetings, we have a time for public comment. So during the council's regular meeting, right at 7, it would be, during the proclamation would be an opportunity to speak in support or share your thoughts about the proclamations, the month, what it means, if anyone's interested.
Next Wednesday?
6 days.
This coming Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 27th at 7, or shortly after 7 p.m.
And I'll just add, if you do want to speak on behalf of these proclamations, you would do it at public comment, which actually happens before the proclamation is read. Just that's the process we go for public comment. But you could certainly say you're here in support of this proclamation that will be read by the mayor. And then she may go ahead and just do it at that point.
Also, you don't mind?
7 o'clock next Tuesday.
Awesome. So if anyone has any updates, please email them to Floor. Or we
speak
Uh,
can
up.
speak up now.
Venir, pero para escuchar a los demás también. ¿Sí puedo venir?
Sí, sí.
¿Aquí?
Sí, aquí, igual a las 7, el martes 27 a las 7.
Sí, yo voy a
I would like to come to that meeting.
And then also we have the Pride Month proclamation, if anyone had any edits or feedback on that one.
No edits.
Anything changes, as always, email Floor. Thank you, Floor, for being the person I can just tell everyone to email. On to our subcommittees. Who is next? Yes. So there was a proposed change to the subcommittees upcoming, and that we would like to combine the Community Influence and Education Subcommittee with the Immigration Rights and Advocacy Subcommittee. I think this is a really great idea. To continue off of the discussion we had last meeting with adding more diversity to our subcommittees, I really like the idea of having more people involved and just to have a broader discussion and more opinions. To me, there's so much value in having as many of us in a meeting as we can, just to vet a lot of our ideas a little bit deeper and to get moving forward with our projects a little bit faster, instead of having to always come back to this meeting point for continued discussion outside of like finalization of ideas, to continue to push forward. Cause like with the grants, it's so streamlined, and then it just kind of comes here for like a yes. I would like with some of the other subcommittees, an idea to grow there, to come here for the explanation, to the few who weren't there. But then the continued push forward in projects, I think we could be a little bit faster with our ideas, with that change. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm very soft-spoken, and I know that is an issue. So now I have nothing. What was that? Oh, do we have to vote on that floor?
We can all just do thumbs up or head nod. Head nod, yeah.
Are we meeting at the same time?
Consensus.
Yeah, so yeah, the meetings are still the same. It just basically a part, like a third of the ones from Wednesday.
Yeah.
Is gonna move with immigration rights and advocacy, and it's basically those projects will work together. So immigration rights and advocacy will still do their thing, but then during a part of that meeting, we'll talk about the project that Abigail brought forward last time, that education piece. How do we educate our community? We're thinking about doing an academy on town government and how we work, and letting people know what we do and things like that, and have people allowed to come to these places. Like they could come to town hall or they could go to public works. But we're working on that. But point being is that, yeah, this would move with immigration rights and advocacy.
Okay.
Given that the times work really well for the people who would be working on the projects, and also the audiences would be similar. So a lot of the audience that we're trying to reach are Spanish speaking, which are immigrant as well, and really all of our immigrant community who even speak other languages. So how do we work together to target the audience that we want? But it'd be a little bit broader because the education piece will be for everyone.
And then to just kind of go, the Celebrate Diversity, Community Outreach and Engagement, and the Community Education and Influence. Out of, I think it was just me. All of the information for that is in the packet. If there are any questions, we'll move forward. The Immigration Rights and Advocacy Subcommittee. Are there anything that you would like us all to know? If not, the information's in the packet.
At the community bike ride, or wait till we do that afterwards?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, jump in.
You want to move on to civic engagement?
And on to civic engagement, there is an update from that subcommittee.
I'm not video Matt.
I believe the future will be a blend of all of the subcommittees, and then there will be like another second meeting that would be the output of all of the information from that mold of subcommittees. Yeah. So Ujela, what would you? We were speaking about a bike ride.
Yes, we're talking about a bike ride. So one of the things that I thought when I joined the commission, I know how our community loves the outdoors, and I wanted to bring that. Growing up as an immigrant myself, and not being in a community, and not having parents that understood what every other kid did because they themselves were an immigrant and just trying to make ends meet. To me, that is a very personal issue as a kid. And I want to ensure that no other kid feels that awkwardness of not being able to explain to their parent what they do and what they're interested in because their friends are interested in it. And so so I think one of the conversations we had was potentially doing a bike ride and providing the resources for that. And I happen to have some friends that know and can provide those resources, and talk to them, and they're open-heartedly willing to help support that. And we're actually having a meeting with Duke Barlow from the Open Spaces, and then Rich Bannock, who is a part owner of Avalanche Sports, who's going to provide bikes And we've, a meeting tomorrow with also the lady from Recreation, yeah.
Yeah.
Who can provide
Bilingual.
training. And so they will consolidate all of these resources and then sometime in June on an evening, have provide that opportunity for our community members. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Tomorrow, and with Floor's help, we'll get it all going.
And then another, oh, sorry. That we have the Treetop grant, subcommittee felt comfortable moving that forward. And they're basically asking for $2,500 to continue their education with their staff and their communications in the languages that the clients need. So that we felt like the revised application came through and it did a better job at explaining what they were going to do. And so they feel comfortable moving it forward. If anybody has any or any concerns on it not moving forward, now's the time to speak.
The one for the.
Child advocacy group.
Advocacy, yeah.
Great. Is everyone good with that one? Or any questions? Great.
On to the upcoming community
Can I
event.
just say one thing about the
Yeah.
bike thing?
Yeah.
So I know like the schools do the bike rodeos. Do you feel that that those families or those kids get enough information out of those bike rodeos and bike safety days, or is there a way to incorporate that like with bike ride? No.
It's different because the bike rodeos is during the school time, right? And they want to do it for the family.
Kids, and it's a family bike ride.
Yeah, so it's like, but they do a lot of safety stuff there. And so I didn't know if there was a way to incorporate like safety for the families there of like bike riding with the
Yeah,
event.
so that's part of go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's a great point, and I'm sure our rec department, like, will make sure they bring it up.
Yep,
and-
okay.
Incorporated. So it's it's not just handing somebody a bike and saying, go ride it.
Yeah, no,
And
for
so
sure.
obviously people, and it'll be, part of the expectation is to have basic knowledge, right? You don't want to teach somebody what, it's more just sort of, here's how you would approach this, right? Like being a novice to not bike riding, but a novice to mountain bike riding. With the hope and the plan is to go down the river trail, right? Which is a simple trail for beginners, and to learn how to, and have somebody in front of you that can show you what to do and how to approach it. And so I think that was my thought around that. Yeah.
So this is mountain biking specifically?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good to know. Road biker myself, e-biker.
Whatever.
Right.
Particular one is yes.
Awesome. And then on to our upcoming community events. There's a really awesome artist at Breckenridge currently, and is going to have an opening at the Masonic Hall Saturday. Saturday, May 24th. I am so sorry. I do not know how to pronounce her last name, and I do not want to make a mess of this. So Anna is her first name, and the name of her exhibit is Irrational Indigenous Insights. And I'm really excited to see the art. Upcoming on Saturday, May 31st from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. is Town Cleanup Day. Friday, June 6th from 4 to 9 p.m. is going to be Town Party. Always a good time. Yeah. At the Riverwalk Center, maybe.
Center lawn, well, basically the whole thing, because we're
Yeah.
gonna be everywhere. So these events basically are we wanted to add another section to give you guys ideas of where we could go represent social equity. So we actually highly encourage you to go to at least one of them, or if you can, or if you go, let me know so we can like support you if you need swag items and whatever like, how can we continue to be part of our community and engage with them and represent the commission. So
wear those awesome name tags and t-shirts and jackets that we all have that
All our swag.
yeah, all our gear. And let people know who we are, because a lot of people have questions on to whom we are as a commission and what we do, and to continue to grow our community and get some opinions that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise are always really great by just having that conversation with someone. And then, as we spoke about earlier with Melissa and Manje, Breck Pride will be from June 9th to June 15th. But I would highly suggest checking out their websites, because they do have a lot of other installations across the month of June that will be really fun. And 4th of July, from 9:30 to 11:30, there'll be a parade, always a ton of fun. Go hang out with Miss June on the Barney Ford lawn.
We're not doing that this year.
Well,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I should have asked before I said that.
Actually, there were some rules broken last year. And,
Well, go say hi to Mr. Barney Ford and
Sorry.
enjoy the parade.
Perhaps what we are doing is, we will, replace the, garden party, which, became, not the right thing to do, but we are doing Eves of History. And so the evening before, we will offer tours of the actual Barney Ford home. And we are going to stick to our mission of protecting that history, but also presenting it. Yeah. So it will be the eves of different historical occasions.
Perfect. Thank you, June. No, it's okay. I assumed. And then from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the 4th of July, there will be several activations with Breck Create. I'm not sure what they are, but Breck Create always does fun things, and I highly encourage everyone to be involved. And then upcoming council discussions.
Have any questions about what was in the memo? It's pretty straightforward.
I personally don't.
No.
The next town council meeting. The next town council meeting is a retreat. Starts at noon on the 27th, but the regular meeting will go at its regular time at 7 o'clock. And that's the where the proclamations will be presented.
Try to be here by 7.
Sweet. Well, I thank everyone for their time this evening, and I would like a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
To adjourn.
And
I
this-
will second.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Yeah, there was no public comment. Oh, man, that would have been sad. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you all in our subcommittee meetings coming up.
The next meeting is June 17th.
Yeah, that makes sense. June.
On my calendar.
18th. I was, yeah.